Hello everybody and welcome back, and today I'll be reviewing The Nun II, which is the 8th/9th movie in the Conjuring franchise if you count The Curse of La Llorona. And straight off the bat, I would say this is definitely not one of the strongest movies in the Conjuring universe. The Nun II follows Sister Irene and Frenchie and has a dual plot. One of Sister Irene and this other nun going around Europe trying to find out where Frenchie is and what Valak wants. And it's more of a detective side of the story. And then over at Frenchie, you have him in the school and it's about him being possessed, and you get the nun actually doing some haunting there. But I say the problem with this dual story is it doesn't really build up the fear. You have a bit with the nun and then you just kind of jump all the way over to the nuns just kind of moseying around Europe, and it destroys the tension. And one of my biggest gripes I would have to say about the Nun II story is the pacing. Because you have this dual plot, I think it takes way too long for the sisters to get to the school and for the hauntings to actually happen. And because of this dual plot, as I said before, the tension's lost. So by the time everyone gets together, it goes from 0 to 100. There's not a steady build-up in hauntings. And because you have characters nowhere near Valak, you really don't get enough Valak in this movie, I have to say. She is barely in this movie. You get some scenes here and there, and maybe one character dies. But because of this weird plot, it doesn't really work, I would have to say. The Nun II has a lot of potential. I just feel what they should have done in this story is got the sisters to the school at maybe the end of Act 1 or halfway through Act 2. Because the way this movie is paced, by the time they get to the school, you feel like the movie is about to end. And then it goes on, and on, and on. And you're looking at yourself being like, why is this movie not over yet? That's the biggest problem. You feel like it's about to end, but it doesn't. And you definitely should have rearranged the events of this movie and condensed some aspects and drawn out some other aspects. If the writers still wanted this Europe crossing story and investigation, you could have gone out to the other nun, have both the sisters get to the school early on, have to find out where Frenchie is. Something goes awry and they do not know how to get rid of Valak and what she's looking for. So the second sister leaves the school to go and try and find out all this information, while Irene stays behind to try and help Frenchie hold on for as long as he can for the other sister to come back. I definitely think that would help this story. There are some great moments in this movie, but I just feel they are lacking at times. And this movie is definitely lacking in the scare factor. This is one of the least scariest Conjuring movies we've had. I do quite like the Conjuring movies because they're not really about gore and death. So that is not the issue for me. It just feels like there is not enough haunting in this movie, and they tried to do something new with The Nun II. I do have to say also, The Nun II does kind of feel pointless because we know where Frenchie ends up. So by the end of this movie, you have this big climactic battle between the sisters and the possessed Frenchie and the nun, and it ends with we got rid of him, we exorcised Valak. Well, we know that isn't going to happen. We know by the end of this movie, Frenchie is still going to be possessed, and the only people that get rid of his possession are Ed and Lorraine Warren. There is a little spoiler, I'm just saying right now, they are in an end credit scene, so is that setting up The Conjuring 4, which will be a prequel to 1, 2 and 3, and be about the first time they meet Valak, and about trying to get rid of Valak out of Frenchie, or is The Nun 3 going to have Ed and Lorraine Warren in it, and is it going to deal with the exorcism of Frenchie? Because we know by the end of this movie that he's still possessed. It is a pointless movie, I have to say. What was the point in making The Nun 2? I definitely think the Nun trilogy, if they will make a trilogy, could have been 2 movies. One with the sister Irene, and the second one is 20 years later in the 60s or 70s, and that is about Emily Warren getting rid of the possession of Frenchie. That could have been the Nun movies. This movie just feels pointless by the end, I do have to say. And if I had to put this down to like one rating, one thing, I would say this is an enjoyable movie. I would have to say it's enjoyable. You can sit down and watch this. It's just a bit too long at times. But I could not give it more than a 5 out of 10 because it is an average movie. And the best thing about this movie is the acting. It really holds this movie together, but outside of the acting, it doesn't make itself worthwhile. You could skip this movie and still know everything about the Nun, because by the end of this movie, it's the same as the start of this movie. There is no change, no story arc. It is about an hour, almost 2 hours of just pointless spooks. But I'd like to know your opinion down below. Did you like this movie? Did you dislike this movie? And what is your favourite Conjuring movie? I'd like to see all your thoughts down below. That's it for me today, so goodbye, peace out, and I'll see you in my next video.